Welcome back to StartupHakk. I'm Spencer Thomason, and with my 25 years of development experience here at StartupHakk, we turn beginners into full-stack developers in as little as 3 months. So today we're going to dive into a powerful technology that's transforming the way we build APIs. We're talking about gRPC and how it can be implemented in your ASP.NET Core APIs. So let's break this down and dive into it today. All right, so let's dive in and talk about unleashing the power of gRPC with .NET. And we're going to talk a little bit about what it is and why you use it. So what is gRPC? gRPC stands for Remote Procedure Call, and it's an open source framework initially developed by Google. It allows for high performance, language agnostic remote procedure calls. gRPC uses HTTP2 for transport protocol buffers as the interface description language, and it provides features like authentication, load balancing, and more. This makes it an excellent choice for building scalable, efficient, and robust APIs. And I know even .NET developers are really starting to use this as well. So why would you use gRPC over some of the alternatives? So gRPC is built on HTTP2, which means better performance and smaller message sizes. So it supports client, server, and bidirectional streaming. It also is a strongly typed contract, so using protocol buffers to define service contracts. It also works with a variety of languages and platforms, but we're going to focus on .NET here today because that's what we focus on. Now, as always, we're going to provide some code samples, so bear with me here because we're going to dive into the code, but make sure you go down to the comments and leave a comment, just say hi, but also make sure that you download the code samples because we have hundreds of code samples ranging across all different kinds of topics. So make sure you go download those today. All right, so what we're going to do with it today is we're going to build a to-do API. And I got this from an article that I was reading about gRPC. And I got this sample here. Now we're going to add a new to-do item. We're going to get a list of to-do items, mark a to-do item as complete, and then we'll implement both of these on a server and client parts of the application. So you're going to have 2 applications because one's client and one's server. So our server will be ASP.NET Core gRPC service that handles the to-do operation, and the client will write a simple console client to interact with our gRPC application. So let's dive into the code. So next, as always, let's dive into the code and get started. Okay, so I've downloaded the code sample. I'm digging in here now, and so you can see that we have 2 projects here. So one of these is the client, and the client is a very basic client to just to be able to call into our gRPC and to be able to link up to that server here, right? And in our case, we're just going to run these locally, but we'll run these both here locally. So then on the server side, we're going to build out the server part of this. So let's go and break through this code and start to look through this. Now, I've saved you a whole bunch of keystrokes, but generally you would start with building this web application first, right? So we have the gRPC web application, and then so you would create this, but in our case you can just use ours as the starting building point, right? And so we add the gRPC services, we create the builder with our normal arguments, we then tell it to build, and then now we can say map the gRPC server. So we can see this greeter service here. Let's go take a look at this code. So now our greeter class here, and let's dive into understanding the project structure just a little bit more before we dive into this. So one of the first things we're going to see is under the protos folder here, right? We can see these protos here. Now these contain the protos file, which will define your gRPC service. Now under the services folder, we can see this is where we implement your gRPC service, the classes themselves, right? Now, in this, we can see where the implementation of and so then the configuration or the program.cs is obviously where we kick off and use these, right? So we can see our greeter service and our to-do service, which are going to be used here, right? So these are the service classes which are going to actually do the work for these gRPCs to call them. But these are the protos, and this is the definition or the message structure that we're going to use in order to send these messages back and forth. Now, in the protos folder, we have the to-do and the greeter protos. So as we look at the to-do proto here, let's pull this open, we can see the structure of our code here. So we have our to-do service, which will return add to-do, and this is the structure of these to-do, these protos. And so then in the service, we have our various service classes. So we have both of these, the to-do as well as the greet. You see the greet is a little bit simpler, right? With the basic hello and returns hello. and with these message structures. So this is a very simple message structure, and these are the contracts that are going to get passed back and forth between the server and the client. Now, on these implementations here, we can see that, in the services folder, let's go take a look at the to-do service class. So in this to-do service class, we can see that it has, to-do items as well as the counter to be able to keep count of where the next item is. These are going to return with a task with an add to-do reply and then a get to-do reply, right? And so these are coming from those. Now, as we call into so as you work through these code samples here, we can call these, and let's try this, and let's get we want to test our RPC service, and so in order to test it, we have to be running both of these. So let's get this guy started here first, and then we can add the breakpoints where we'll test this and see how these work together. So give me 1 second here while I get these guys up and running and get both of these running. Okay, now to get these all running here, we're going to have to bounce back and forth between some windows. So bear with me a little bit, and I'll try to see if we can explain all of this as we go through it. But again, as always, pull down these code samples, start to play with them yourself. I think you'll learn a lot as you start to walk through these together. And so we really, I'm going to walk through these here with you now. So over on this side, so I have 2 instances of Visual Studio running. And this one is running the server, which is the gRPC, and then you can see the client is not running here right now. So what we can do is we can actually add, let's throw a breakpoint in here on the server side. And like I said, we're going to have to kind of bounce back and forth a little bit here. So let's throw a breakpoint into the add to do here. Now on the client side, let's head over to the client. So I opened up a second version of instance of Visual Studio. And on the client, I put a breakpoint just on this very first part so we could watch it fire up. Now you notice that it's looking at the 4 address, and it's looking at the 7404 local host, which is running against this server, right? And so that's where the server is running. We can see the server started up over here on that same port. So the server was running in that other one. So right now I have 2 console windows open, the client and the server. Now, as we step through this, what I'm going to get here, so we set up the initial one. Now I'm going to add a to-do request, right? And so the description says learn gRPC. So as I do this, and I'm using the await keyword, it adds this, and we'll see that we hit the breakpoint over on our server side here. Oops. Like I said, it's going to be a little crazy to bounce back and forth. I don't know very many developers that only use one window, but there's no way I can show 2 windows on while I'm streaming here for you. So we see that this request came in, right? And the request is learn gRPC, and here's the context, right? So as it comes in, it adds this new result and then returns this value back. And we'll just let this run here because I don't want to get down into the compiled code. Now, it's going to go over to our next line here, but as we look over on this, we can see, whoops, we're going to let it write this out. We'll see that the resulting was learn gRPC, which actually went all the way through then. So it added that item, right? And it just returned that message. Now, we're going to go ahead and retrieve it now. So let's go put a breakpoint over on our get here. Oh, let's get out of this compiled code here. And let's go over to our get, right, where it's going to get from the to-dos. Now, the request that it's going to get is the one that we had just put in there. So let's take a look at these here. So as I go back over to my client application, I'm going to run that. Now you see that it hit the server side, right? So like I said, it's a little complicated because it's bouncing back and forth. So you'll have to run this yourself and play with it. So the request came in, and it said, hey, get the to-do requests and our to-do items, and it then returns these and replies with the items that we have, which is all of them, right? Because this is going to get all of the list of replies. That will return them, and then, whoops, we're going to let this guy run here. So we'll let that guy run. Now back over onto our client side. So in our client code, we can see now we're going to break down each of these and write all of them out to the console. So let's let this guy all run. Whoops, we got a little bit extra ahead of ourselves here. So you can see that it got both of these two, right? And said that, hey, neither of them have been completed because we've added this twice. I accidentally ran this once before while we were broken here, while we were in the break. So there's 2 of them that it sees with the learn gRPC, tongue twister. This one then says, hey, let's mark them all as completed, and it's going to mark the first one as completed, right? And then it's going to go and get all those lists again. So we're going to hit those same breakpoints again. We'll let those run through here. Oops, hopefully we just got to the end here. So you can see that it actually marked the first one of these as true, and then the other one was false. because remember I accidentally ran this program twice. So if we run that client again, so just for kicks and grins, let's run that client again because our servers actually stayed up and run, right? So we have this read line, which is a good trick if you're using a console application to add this read line so you can see it run all the way to the end in case you forget to do a breakpoint. Hit enter, and this guy should end out. Either way, we'll kill this guy off. So I'm going to kill that guy off. Now, our server is still running over here, right? So it's sitting there with 2 of these tasks added to it. So in this case, we're going to leave the server running again. Oh, excuse me, we're on the client here. So let's run this client again. And when we run this client again, I'm going to let it run all the way through to the bottom. We'll see that behavior. Let's let that client run all the way through. Oops, I think we have breakpoints over on the server. That's what we're hitting. So let's remove all of our breakpoints here and let this guy fly through. Now we can see on the client, I think we might have gotten ourselves tangled up here a little bit. Let me take a look here really fast on where we're at. We don't have any breakpoints. So let me take a look and see what's going on here with this. All right, so it looks like we'd gotten hung up with some breakpoints there, but so I ran this again, and now you can see that the same code sample mark, the first one is true, and we have 3 in there now. So the client's been run 3 times against the server while the server's still running. So this allows you to see how these gRPC work. They're very fast, very nimble, very lightweight. They have these really nice clients, contracts which are set up via these protos. Very handy way. So grab this code sample, pull it down, take a look at it, walk through how it works. It's really pretty fascinating. So this is really especially powerful when you're building both the client and the server. Otherwise, I'm usually a pretty big fan of REST, but if you have a specific, if you're building the client and the server, this is a great way to do it because let's say you have an embedded project that wants to use gRPC and can write from some other embedded language on a device, then you can run the server on .NET on your server. Lots of different use cases that you can use for gRPC. I've found a couple of them all over the years, usually mostly in embedded stuff where I want the server, and then it can be very lightweight and can use these protos, which can be passed between various different languages. So anyways, that's a great intro to our to the subject here. What are your thoughts? Do you agree? Do you disagree? I love having a good discussion. So make sure you leave comments down in leave me a comment down below, even if it's just to say hi. Here at StartupHakk, we love to train software developers. With my 25 years of development experience, we take people with 0 experience and help to train them to be ready to start, not to be a pro, but to start as a full stack software developer in as little as 3 months. So make sure you check out startuphakk.com. Make sure you pull down the code. The code sample is really handy, and we will catch you guys next time. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel because we bring you lots of great tutorials and tips that every developer should know. See you next time.